I have made no secret about Kenpachi Zaraki being my favorite character in Bleach so far. I wouldn't be able to hide my love for sweet, violent Kenny. The hype and excitement that he creates when he's in a panel is too strong to contain. At the moment, there's just nobody in this universe that is cooler than this man. So suffice to say, when some Soul Reaper captains came to Agamotto to take on the Espada, this was the fight I was most looking forward to. Like, I enjoyed seeing Byakuya dismantle, what was his name? Zamari, yes. And I even liked the questions brought up by Unohana making her opponents immediately retreat. And I was excited to see the two scientists square off, and that ended up being perfect. It's all been great and fun, but in the back of my mind, I was still just waiting to see this fight. Not only is Kenpachi my favorite character, and I love seeing him scrap just as much as he enjoys getting into them, but also because Nnoitora has been built up to be this truly despicable person, to the point that us readers want to see him get trashed by Kenny even more. And this duel did not disappoint, not even a little. It completely lived up to the bloodlust of both of these characters in the most wonderful way. So let's get into it. First off, the absolute surprise hype man that Mayuri turned out to be when he talked about Kenny. He's kind of proven himself to be one of the smartest characters in the series, and we've never really seen him praise anyone but himself. So when he's saying that Kenpachi is a beast that will cut down anything in his way, implying that Kenpachi doesn't need any help, that's an incredibly high compliment coming from Mayuri. Sure, he refers to Kenny as a ruffian and talks as if he's a wild animal in a bit of a disparaging way, but that's just Mayuri. Him singing anyone's praises though, even like that, is a huge sign of respect. So it was cool to hear that perspective, and scary considering how scary Mayuri himself is. He's a monster in his own right, but Kenpachi is an altogether different kind of beast. It was just hype to hear this coming from him. One of the things I love most about Kenny is how much he enjoys what he does. He loves to fight. He practically lives for it, and it turns out that Nnoitora is very similar in that regard. The smiles on these guys' faces was just so infectious. I loved seeing them enjoying themselves. I was having fun by just seeing how much fun they were having. And you wouldn't think of it at first glance, but Kenpachi and Nnoitora are much more similar than I expected them to really be, but there are a few key differences that separate them. Like, Nnoitora wants to be better than everyone. Kenpachi kind of is better than everyone, or at least more powerful than most. Kenny wants people to rise to meet him, to give him a good fight, while Nnoitora wants to stomp his enemies and crush them and show them that he's superior. Kenpachi doesn't try hard to prove anything, he just shows it, plain as day, through all of his actions, while the whole core of who Nnoitora is about proving himself to other people. Both desire opponents that can match them, but Nnoitora secretly wants to die in battle, to find someone that can kill him, but more on that later. So there are absolutely differences. They're not the same guy and come from very different places, but they share a passion for violence and bloodshed, along with some other similarities that are just fun to consider. Like, I love the touch of Nnoitora not being able to be cut at first. It was like an echo of the first time we saw Kenny fight in the Soul Society arc, back when Ichigo couldn't cut him. It was a nice parallel and was so satisfying when Kenpachi finally drew some blood and humbled Nnoitora a little bit. They even both have Eyepatches, but on opposite sides and for very different reasons. Thematically, it feels like a way of showing something they share on a surface level, but their views are actually coming from two altogether different perspectives. Kenny wears his eye patch to help control his own immense power, while Nnoitora wears one to hide his hollow hole, maybe to make himself feel like he's beyond that now, or in this case, to let someone try and fail to stab him in the eyeball. And Kenny running his sword through the eye only for Nnoitora to reveal that that's where his hollow hole is a fun little moment and reveal. All hollows have a hollow hole, and we've seen that Arrancars retain that. So it's fun to see where some of these characteristics for them are. We've seen where, like, Grimmjow and Ukiura, we've seen where their holes are, but others we didn't. Eren-Yero, Zamari, Xyloporo all never showed where theirs are, I don't think. At least from what I remember. I don't think we've seen those. Nnoitora's released form design was also pretty fantastic. I've talked a lot about how so much of his character seems to be about overcompensation, and this visually leaned into that even more. He's got more arms and more weapons, just trying to completely overwhelm his opponent with all of these extra things. It's pretty cool looking too and makes him even more intimidating. He really becomes almost demonic looking. It was great. But the real highlight for me was how the fight ended. Just when it seems like Kenpachi is about to unleash some kind of transformation or secret move, I'm reading and thinking maybe he's gonna finally say his Zanpakuto's name or something. But no, his big move is like the most simple, obvious thing that can happen, but it turns into one of the most hype moments in the series for me so far. Kenny decides to start wielding his sword with both hands. And I'm sitting there like, is that new for him? Has he never done that we've seen? Did we never really see him use two hands before, even against Ichigo or against Tozen? And as I thought back to it, and even went back to look at it, sure enough, he was using one hand every time we've seen him fight. And it's not like his style of fighting. He's not like a fencer. He's not a Count Dooku type. No, he just chose to only use one. It's just so awesome to see such a simple change in his tactics make such a massive difference as he immediately strikes down Nnoitora the moment he starts wielding a sword properly. So between his eye patch holding back his power and not even bothering to put both hands on his sword, Kenny is constantly restraining himself. And now we get another glimpse of him trying just a little, and what a difference a little bit of effort makes. I also just like the idea that Nnoitora gives himself all these extra arms and weapons while Kenny just decides to finally use the arms he already has. Also, he can wield one sword properly. It's just a clever little juxtaposition between the two characters. But we can't forget that Nnoitora's tough, so he doesn't die immediately. So it was interesting that Kenpachi wasn't even going to bother finishing him off until Nnoitora goaded him into it. And while Nnoitora claims to squash those beneath him, Kenpachi doesn't want to bother with someone that's not up to his level. He spares his opponents, probably because he wants them to grow and come and fight him again because he just enjoys the fight. He doesn't care about the position it gives him or the superiority it gives him over people. He just wants an entertaining good time. But after Kenny obliges, it's a decisive victory for our boy. And in his last moments, we see a little bit more of Nnoitora's backstory that offers a little more insight into who he really is. Nnoitora doesn't want to be pitied, and he thinks the only way he can stop others from pitying him is to be merciless to anyone and everyone to prove his strength. But the truth is, deep down, what he wants most is to die in battle. I thought this was fascinating because of just how cruel he is to others. He's trying to push them as far as he can to the point where they want to end him, trying to find someone strong enough that's willing to take his life. It seems like a very toxic way to live, improving yourself by hurting others, just so you can hopefully find someone that wants to put you down for good. I think that definitely plays a part into how much he hated Nell, because even when she was superior to him, she didn't want to kill him. He kept challenging her to fights to the death, and she kept sparing him. She was taking away the thing that he wanted most, the thing that would show that someone really respected him. It was the biggest insult in the world to him that he wasn't worth killing. And I like that they share a small moment when he's dying. Really just a final look. The last time he sees Nell isn't as the Espada he knew, but as the broken victim of trauma that he created with his dirty fighting and his cheap shot. And yet, she's still alive as his life fades away. In a different, maybe lesser story, Nell would have been the one to defeat him, and it would have been fitting and warranted, but I really like that he instead lost to someone that doesn't have a history with him, but instead is just another overwhelming force that clashed against him. Someone similar, but also very different. Kenpachi was the right person to give Nnoitora his wish, a reflection of who he is, down to having an eye patch on the opposite side. I've talked a lot about Nnoitora these last few videos because he's fascinating, and now as he seems to exit the story, I'm gonna remember Nnoitora as a memorable, despicable antagonist that is an example of what insecurity and spite can do to someone. I think even deep down, he hated himself and who he was, and that played a role in how he wanted to go out. I don't know. He could have been written as like a simple sadist, just a monster, but I appreciate Kubo injecting more layers into him. Behind all of the pathetic jealousy and pettiness, there really was an interesting depth to him. So, goodbye, Nnoitora. You brought a fun energy to the antagonists, and definitely stand out among the Espada. I'll miss your giant weird collar, and my wife thirsting after you. Meanwhile, Kenpachi remains the terrifying, hulking juggernaut of spiritual power, and I love him dearly for how nonchalant he is about being that way. Whenever he does learn his Zanpakuto's name, if he ever does, it'll probably be one of the most exciting things to happen. Like, if he's this strong just by holding a sword correctly, I can't imagine what's going to happen when he actually starts unlocking his power more. Crazy. Love him. It's just going to be so exciting. But exciting things are already happening, as just when it seems like we won, Stark shows up and takes Orihime back to Aizen out of nowhere. It was startling, and Kubo did a good job of making it feel like it happened so quickly as it must have in the story. The frantic attempt to save her only for her to be gone, it was easy to feel that, and I was stunned when it was happening. We've gone through all of this trouble, all of this arc to get her back, and the Espada could have reclaimed her in seconds if they wanted to. Clearly. It's a reminder that just because we've cut down like half of them at this point, there are still plenty of them left, and most of them have higher rankings than the ones we've beaten. It's a crazy place to leave off, as it seems like Aizen is ready to finally make his move against Karakura Town. But good luck, Aizen. Don Kanonji is there, ready to rock you, and you don't stand a chance. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Sorry for the little delay, but life can get busy sometimes, and I'm doing my best to keep on reading when I can, as this series is just so fun to talk about. Hope you all are doing well, and I'll see you soon. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time for what looks to be some big things about to happen.